Hello everyone, I am Seibel, also known as the Deputation, SCVR R66, and the 66 Beatles. I'm here to do another sit down because the last one was about, a couple months ago, was about my history, basically just with trains in general, and when did I start rebuilding HO scale steam locomotives. And now I'm going to be doing a history of the Santa Clarita Valley Railroad, which is an HO scale tourist railroad. Uh, as I said before, it's not at all realistic, but just for the fun. And I was going to go over some figures, and I forgot to do that. What I was going to go over was how many steam engines I had operational, and the size of the collection. I'll probably do that during this video as I figure that out in time. But the Santa Clarita Valley Road all started back in back towards December 2010. Not really, but this is a huge story with it. See, because Roundhouse, or Athearn, because Athearn took over Roundhouse many years ago, and they still make Roundhouse engines under Athearn's name. But in late, I want to say kind of early, actually 2010, they announced they would make a new run of 260s, and the Southern Pacific paint scheme, the Chesapeake and Ohio, the Rio Grande, and I know there's another, either Canadian Pacific or Pennsylvania, another one. Canadian National, I think, actually. But anyways, they made another running of those, about 4 road names, along with a bunch of other coaches. And I really wanted the Southern Pacific Daylight one, because the Southern Pacific is my favorite road name. They used to run down here in Santa Clarita, California. And the reason why I like them a lot is mainly just on their paint schemes. You know, the Daylight scheme, the Black Widows, which you can't see them, but they're sitting, I'm looking at them right now. The Lark, you know, there's so many, they're so not boring is what I would think I was trying to say, because they weren't just all black, you know, they weren't just all one color, they had variety, and that's what I really liked about them. And I loved their steam locomotives, and probably one of my favorite things about them in particularly was the way they placed the headlight on the steam locomotive, dead center in the smoke box door. Not that the ones on top of the smoke box door or on top of the smoke box aren't good, but to me the SP style, just pretty much dead center, if not 60% of the way up the smoke box door, that just looks perfect on practically every steam locomotive. But I have a lot of them that have that and that don't. But anyways, the Southern Pacific Daylight one was the one I wanted, and they weren't released yet. Their planned release date was December 2010. And I wanted one as a Christmas present, along with 4 matching Overton coaches, which are like they're about as long as the Harriman coaches, but they have the old style look to them, as like what like the little shorty ones do, but they're long and they're really nice. I still have that. Yeah, it was a set of 4 of those, and along with the Southern Pacific 260 number 1601, and that brand new. The steam engine was 120 or 109, I think, and the coach set was 70, so it was basically about 180 to almost 200 for that brand new. I got that at toytrainheaven.com. Well, I ordered it from there, and it was like a typical thing where they weren't ready in time. It got pushed back to March, then got pushed back to May. And 6 days after my birthday, which is on May 1st in 2011, actually on May 1st the coaches came, sorry. The coaches came on May 1st, and 5 days later on the 6th, the engine came. So, and I wanted it to be separate from, see, the collection that's all that behind me is what I used to call the main fleet. And what the main fleet was just the entire collection, the whole, you know, ball of wax, the entire collection of engines I had. I didn't have the Santa Clarita Valley Railroad at the time. It was just all one thing. And I wanted it to be separate from that, and I wanted to keep it in a separate shop. So that's basically what started the whole thing. That's not how it's not more or less how it started, but it's more or less what kind of provoked, it kind of almost lit the fire. Because as soon as that came in, my dad and I had built these kind of janky, but they're still pretty good. custom wood engine houses. They're nice, and I still have a couple of them. They're just off-site. They don't look nearly as good as any of these things that are kits, but we built 3 of those actually. Excuse me. And soon after, I had the establishment of a private collection separately from the main fleet. I added a second locomotive, which was a Bachmann Spectrum Southern 440 number 3863. And that engine I got for my birthday, or was it Christmas or my birthday? Shoot. I think it was Christmas for 2009. I don't know why. I was just talking about that the other day. Trying to think of why I can't remember that. It was Christmas 2009 that I got this. That too was a brand new engine at the time, the Spectrum Southern 440 number 3863. And back then, those ones were so much better because I mean, this video is not about the type of engines that I had, but the 440s then, you could make them a coal burner, an oil burner, or a wood burner. They gave you the coal load, which is standard. They gave you an oil bunker, and they gave you a wood load, also with the wood barrier on top of the tender for the wood stack. And originally, I made my engine a wood burner. That was not at all prototypical, but I really liked the look of it. But in 2 weeks, I kept it in the box. Those 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks that I had it, because I didn't want it to get dusty sitting in the shelves back here. Even if I covered it up, it'd still get dusty. So I kept it in the box and probably ran it maybe 2 times, if that. And about 3 weeks later, I went to take it out, and I noticed one of the PCB wires broke. The tip broke off. You know, on the smaller 2-wire orange one. If you guys know Bachmann engines, you guys know what I'm talking about. But one of the smaller wires broke off, and I just couldn't believe it. I mean, the engine was not but 3 weeks old yet, and I hadn't used it. It had just been sitting in the box, and that happened. I mean, I was just furious, and I was just really upset because I really loved that engine. See, because back then those things were brand new, and I remember the original MSRP was $400. Now, I'm not even kidding you. I remember that really well. It was $400 for those things brand new, and they were only DCC ready. The newer ones I have, because eventually I replaced it, but the newer ones the newer ones have a different style tender. The paint scheme's darker, and let me think here. And they don't give you the oil bunker or the wood stack with the wood grates. I don't know why. In my opinion, the old ones are so much better, even performance-wise, because a lot of the new Bachmann stuff just doesn't. It just is not reliable. My new Southern 440 3856 and my Spectrum 060T number 8 and well, I say the only new Bachmann engine I have that does not require a warm-up time is my 210 number 2. Sorry, my 210-2 number 23, 223. Other than 3056 and number 8 require a lot of warm-up time. A couple laps warm up. It kind of annoys me. They're just not as dependable. They're kind of going back to how cheap they used to be. But anyways, 3863 is another engine I really loved, and I wanted to make it along with the private separately from the main fleet. There was not a name for that at the time, but that's where it started. And I had 2 engine houses because it was on the old layout, and I'll probably have pictures like flying at you through this power. I'll use the movie maker to have pictures kind of pop up as I'm talking of what I'm talking about, because this is not the original layout that the line started on. The original one was a 4x8. And it was pretty good. I really do miss that layout a lot of times, but we had the 2 wood engine houses that we built. One of them, because we didn't have the turntable and all that back then, so essentially it'd be like right here where the turntable is, there'd be a wood shed, and that was where 1601's engine house was. There's a switch right there for her 4 daylight coaches, and then here's the freight yard. Then it kind of traced back around. There was there was a coach yard. There was no shops at that time, and on one of the coach tracks I made 3863's engine house. That's where she stayed. And that didn't last very long because I just did not like the look of the wood engine houses because they were so not good looking. Um, they're just square boxes, pretty much, just square, square, square. You know, they didn't look good. So those lasted for maybe about a month or two, and then finally, when I was in Irvine with my parents, we went to a train store nearby in Costa Mesa called, I don't know why I'm even saying what the name of it is, but it's probably like, oh my god, I don't know why. Usually I have a good memory of these things. It wasn't the Whistle Stop, but it was. Forget about it. Anyway, there's a train store in Costa Mesa, and I don't know what initially I went there for. Mainly just to browse, because anytime we're on vacation, I always look up places if there's a train museum or a train store nearby. We always go take a look. And then I found an engine house there, which is a model power 2-stall engine house, which I don't know if you can see that, but it's the silver one over here next to the roundhouse, and that is the first shop the Santa Clarita Valley Road ever had, and that's definitely what started the Santa Clarita Valley Road in the first place. We had gotten the kit in March. I didn't build it till June, just because school didn't have a lot of time. But yeah, then in June it got built pretty early on, and the first two engines that moved in were the 1601 and the 3863. There was no switch to the stall 1 because I didn't have that yet, so it was just 1601, and then on a separate piece of track not connected was 3863. And that's how it was for a little while, and about a week later we got the switch and connected it, and it worked fine. It was still way back in like the coach yard, and that's where basically all the changes started. It went from being like a layout that basically just stored cars to a layout that finally started storing engines. That's really where it started evolving. And then the third engine of the SCVR, it's hard to go back on 2 years, but I'm trying to say it was either my first ever steam engine, which was an IHC 260 number 7809, or it was my dad's old Monto 040 shifter, which I talk about all the time, number 5, which was the 5-year-long restoration, and it is definitely my pride and joy of a steam locomotive. I'll have probably pictures popping up for you, because again, there's photos next to me of what it originally looked like and what it looks like now. Anyways, I'm gonna go say that it was crap. Alright, it was number 5. It just takes a little while, I'm sorry. Anyways, it was number 5, and number 5 was the third engine. It was not operational. We had it for 4 years at that point, and it wasn't really going anywhere. Its boiler and frame were repainted in 2010, and still needed motor work, still needed a new tender, needed a lot of running gear work. It basically just was made to look nice for a little while. And it was always kept behind the now it's called the auxiliary shop, but at that time it was just our shop. It was kept behind the shop for a little while. That's always where it was until 2012, till it was finally restored or finished. But that was the third engine, and always stayed behind the shop because number 5 at the time, well, actually it was number 5. That's always been one of my favorite engines, just because it was from my dad, and it was in just such bad shape. Like I said in a lot of videos before, it was missing valve guides, the drive wheels were out of quarter, or out of sync, I guess you would say. It was missing a smoke box door, it was missing a cab, missing a lot of the tender steps. The tip to the lead motor wire that's screwed in to the bottom of the tender frame was missing. Paint chips really bad. Everything was just worn out. Everything. Now it's like a brand new engine with a brand new tender, new running gear, new motor. Only thing original on it is the boiler, frame, and cylinders. That's it. I still have a couple of the original rods and all that scattered around, it's good to have, but it's a brand new engine. It runs fabulously. But that was the third engine of the Santa Clarita Valley Road, and always stayed behind the shop during the original setup. The fourth engine, I'm trying to think. It's weird because I was just looking at old pictures of this the other day. The fourth engine was the Life Like 040 number 98, which is sitting behind me. I mean, I probably just have pictures popping up, but this is number 98, the little 040. That was the fourth Santa Clarita Valley Railroad engine, and I originally, the day I went to the Roundhouse, the train store I always go to, I was going to buy a Montua Classics 060T. Unfortunately, one of the drive wheels is out of quarter, and it had a hiccup. It wouldn't run right. So I ended up leaving with this Life Like 040. It was, at the time, Santa Fe painted. And you know, it ran pretty well. It didn't do so well in turnouts on that layout, so then I purchased a Rivarossi 060T undecorated from eBay as a buy it now, and that was the replacement more or less. But before this, my first ever steam locomotive and engine that I ever had, excuse me, as a kid, was the fifth engine to go to the SCVR, and that was a former Santa Fe 260 IXG number 7809, part of the Zenith Limited set. We got that in 1993, which is 4 years before I was born, because I was born in 1997. It was for my brother. My mom got it for my brother, who was only 1 year old at the time. He was born in 93. And just bought it because they wanted to start getting us into trains, and that was the first engine that we ever had. And it's amazing how that was always the engine through the last 3 layouts or so we've had that's been able to still run strong. It last got rebuilt a couple months ago. It started back in 2012 on the old layout and was finished on this new layout. It's sitting in front of the main shop, which you cannot see. I don't really use it anymore because even with the rebuilt third axle and the new paint and the better motor mechanics, it's still a worn out engine, and I'd rather just, I like just sitting it. It's more of a thing to have because it's really something to treasure to have your first engine still with you. But that was the fifth engine at the time, and it joined 1601 inside the engine house. Eventually 3863, I believe, got moved to the front of it, and her tender went behind the shop because she wasn't running. 98 was stored, I think, in the front of it. For a little while, the first, I believe, week or two or so, 98 was stored inside the shop while 479 showed up before we moved 709 to the SCVR. And yeah, that's basically where the Santa Clarita Valley Road really started, with the acquisition of number 98. Not that it's a special engine, but it really started the whole idea of acquiring more engines to start building a tourist line. And I adopted the name. I've always kind of thought of the name Santa Clarita Valley Railroad just because I live in Santa Clarita and it just suits. So I thought about the name for a while, but it finally kind of clicked and went into action after we started acquiring more engines. So if you were to ask me, I'd say it would really, the whole name kind of started after number 98, which has since gone through a repaint to an undecorated scheme, like most of the SCVR engines are. Excuse me, just getting water. Anyways, the sixth engine, which was a couple weeks after 709 joined, was a non-decorated Rivarossi 060T, which is now number 66. And that engine was a buy it now on eBay for around $30 or so, and it was fantastic. I mean, I really loved the look of it, and I still to this day had it out on the layout a couple days ago for some running after I'd done some servicing to it on the contact plates and the frame. But I wanted it because, like I said, 98 had trouble going around the turnout. She would always stall on a turnout, and that's why I wanted 66 as more of a better replacement. Because it's a Life Like 040. Everybody knows they're cheap. So that was the sixth engine, and we still have it today, like pretty much all the rest of the SCVR engines. And that's always just been a really fun engine to run. It's always needed a lot of frame servicing every now and again, but it's still chugging along, just as good as it ever did. And there's a lot of early SCVR videos on this channel of mine, like the unboxing of the River Rossi 060 was kind of when I started filming SCVR stuff. And I'm trying to think after that, because for a while it was just those engines, and then okay, yeah, then I realized I needed another shop. Actually, the day before number 66 arrived in the eBay unboxing, I had set a bid, actually won a small red shop built by Revel. It is right next to the auxiliary shop, which is probably out of view, but it's a tiny red shop. I wanted another two-stall shop to put next to the gray shop because I wanted something bigger. I wanted something that could house number 98, number 3063, number 66, and number 5 all in one shop, which is pretty ambitious, but I wanted to try it at least. And I had no idea that shop was actually smaller than the gray shop because the eBay photos look kind of deceiving. But now I'm a lot better at finding out the dimensions and whatnot. So that was that was kind of the next major purchase, and 66 and 3063 were the engines that were stored in that red shop when it arrived. About a week or so after 66 had arrived. Sorry, my throat kind of hurts. Anyways, that was the next purchase in 98, and a bobber caboose were always kept behind the red shop. And behind the gray shop was number 5 and Southern. I think it was 1491, Southern 14 and 1491, which is an SCVR engine now. It wasn't at that time. It was just put behind the shop as like a decorator piece, kind of. But now it is undergoing restoration for a Santa Clarita Valley Road mainline steam program. We'll get to that later. So that's basically the whole format. We didn't start doing trains. Like, I ran 1601 before, because the SCVR didn't officially open till 2012 in January, and that's only because I didn't feel like it was ready to open, because I didn't have a lot of coaches ready for it. Because I didn't want to take everything that was from the main fleet and put it all into the SCVR, because the SCVR is specifically for the favorites. So I wanted to keep it basically just favorite central. So I knew it wasn't going to be running trains in 2011 with it, because and the layout wasn't done either. The layout had like no scenery on it. We'd finally, around the time of 66, we'd finally started adapting scenery techniques. And some of the first turf was finally laid. I'm giving you a history of the layout too while I'm at it. Yeah, because trains started in 2012, but we had really amassed ourselves a big collection of engines for the SCVR in 2011. And I'm trying to think back to, so I got her in August, and in September or October I got 66 in the shop, and October, November. I want to say the next SCVR engines didn't come. See, this is why I wanted the figures, so I knew what to exactly say. Because I wouldn't be stuttering if I had known what exactly every time was. Because it's just hard to remember. So many engines now. But I want to say probably the next purchases was in Christmas 2011, and that was the acquisition of our Cherry Valley Logging Company 2662 number 25, which is also nicknamed the Christmas engine because she is red and green. And that's still today one of my favorite engines of the SCVR. Just a joy. And it sparked another mini collection within the SCVR as well. It could have been, sorry about that, guys. My camera had like a timing malfunction. Doesn't matter. Anyways, I want to say that in December 2011 was when the next kind of major purchases on engines were made for Christmas time. And the first one was these are Christmas gifts was, like I said, the 2662 Cherry Valley Logging Company, the Montua number 25, along with a Roundhouse 260, along with it was one of the new runs of Roundhouse 260s, the Chesapeake and Ohio 260 number 425, which I will, being I can see it and I can roll it out, I'll roll it out for you. Nothing like a hand cranked turntable. Whoops. She hasn't been out in a while. She probably needs some more oil. But good engine. This was a Christmas gift for 2011, but it had a defect, and which was a delayed throttle reaction and a hiccup. You can go back to the Christmas gifts video from 2011. You can see it, because right when I was opening it up, it showed the problems firsthand. I was frustrated then, I'll tell you that. Then about 2 weeks later, we got the replacement, and no problems ever since. And I want to say, I don't even remember where I kept 420. Oh yeah, that's right. I believe I kept 425 and 1601 in the gray shop, and I want to. It's so tricky remembering all this. So we built another spur outside on the track before, because there was 4 tracks and they all went to the shops, but there were a couple little spurs here and there for extra equipment, and on one we built a track on the 4th shop track, which would go to the right side stall of the red shop. We built a switch on that side so we'd have equipment going to the side of the shop, and 25 and some other equipment like coaches were stored on there. In 425 and 1601, I believe, were in the gray shop. 709 was probably moved outside one way or another. 98 was already outside, and 38, 63, and 66 were in the red shop. And I'm pretty sure that was it for 2011. But even then, that was still a lot of locomotive purchases for that time. In 2012, man, that was a big year for the SWR, I'll tell you that. And we opened trains officially January 2nd, 2012, because on January 1st is when I because the main fleet it's not even there anymore, more or less. I don't consider it anything anymore. But yeah, I think my dad's gonna need me for something in a second, so I'll pause this video. Sorry about the repeated interruptions, guys. Just can't help it. Anyways, like I said, 425 and 25 were the next 2 steam locomotives to come along. Oh, it's going to be hard to keep track of this, but let me see here. Yeah, I was trying to count how many there were at that time. I don't know. Just lose track of things. But let me see here. I believe they were the 7th and 8th engines to come to the SCVR. Probably made a miscalculation there somewhere, but anyways, yeah. And they've still been today probably one of my favorite runners, because we started moving away from just certain types of engines, because at that point it just started to go to, all right, we're just going to start acquiring a vast collection of engines and start building a tourist road. And we had started our operations, like I said, on January 2nd, because on January 1st, the main fleet has their Steam Day parade, which I've been doing since 2008. on my really old accounts that I always used to do those videos, and those accounts are no longer around. But I always used to have the main fleet Steam Day Parade. And the last year I did it was 2000. Technically, it was 2011. I didn't do a parade of steam in 2012, but I still had main fleet operations. But that was the last year of main fleet operations. And so they were on January 1st, and that's pretty much what provoked the annually opening of the Santa Clarita Valley Railroad on January 2nd. When we tore down our old line and built this new one, we started on like January 6th and 7th, 5th and 6th, because we weren't ready by the 2nd, unfortunately, but it's whatever. And we do not have grand openings, like I was talking to my friend John. We don't have grand openings every year because that's just way too much work, and because you really don't need a grand opening. It's like, it'd be like us having like a bunch of natural disasters and keep having to be like the grand reopening, the reopening. But no, we'll just be going back to the steam ups to start off the new year, because the grand opening was way too much work to do. It was about an 2 8-hour days here in this garage to film it all, run it all. It makes my head spin. That was just way too much work. But anyways, we started off the 2012 season, some fresh engines, and 25 is a real go-getter back then. And in January 2012, the first month, I think it was the 7th or so, we acquired another steam locomotive, which is our MDC Roundhouse L6OT number 9, the Weyerhaeuser logging number 9. And she is in the roundhouse, and she is not operational, but I will get her out. I know you can't, I looked at the camera view, I know you can't see them that well, but you know, it's better than nothing, I suppose. Here's number 9. She recently received a facelift. I modified, because originally she had a Montua smokebox storefront, which was obviously added, and it looked really ugly on this engine because it was huge. So I took an MDC Roundhouse smokebox storefront along with an MDC Roundhouse headlight off a more modern engine and gave it a facelift, and it looks a lot different than it used to be. It looks a lot different than the original ones do. And she was our kind of bad purchase, I guess, to start the new year, because I've always had a thing for repairing engines and buying ones that don't work well so I can make them work well. But in January 2012, I was not just getting into the whole feel of it, but I was getting into the new drift of the SCVR, and I was really starting to evolve as a repair guy and a machinist. Because I mean, I wish I can go back. I wish I could take my skills I have right now and go back then to save a lot of the old engines I had. But it's whatever. But number 9 arrived as a pretty bad operator. I mean, she thrashed the rails because I mean, literally, because there were on the old layout. You can remember there were station platforms, and there were no ballast in them, but there was a lot of old track cleaner dust and lint, and a lot of like right here, like there's like a track eraser, track cleaner shavings. And whenever she would run by at a moderately fast pace, not really fast, but I'd say 60% throttle, she'd throw the stuff off the track and kind of not really get into her motor and mechanics, but she would throw it around the tracks. She would thrash and wobble a lot. She was no 6.0, and we tried so many things to try to get her to work right. She just never did. And after we were doing a repaint on everything, we noticed that the screw hole for the contact plate wire was stripped, and we're just kind of like, well, we just got screwed there. So the engine has never been operational since, and she wasn't in service for too long, maybe about March or February. That's when she was last steamed up and used. She was making a comeback. She needs a new frame, but her drivers have all been repaired. Like I said, the boiler was repainted, and the smoke box area got a facelift. So she's on her way. She's still a restoration project, and she'll be done probably later this year if all goes well. But she was the next engine to be acquired. And then in It might have been February. No, I'm sorry. I'm just having like a tough time remember. I think in February actually was when the Monto 040 shifter, sorry, booster number 30, Southern Pacific number 33 was acquired. Bought it. The train star was good. Roundhouse always had it, and they didn't know what they were going to do with it. And I believe at the time I was getting 98 back in August of 2011. They offered it to me for sale because I really wanted the Monto 060, but like I said, it had the hiccup and you couldn't use it. Uh, and because I was kind of on the fence the left leg overall because I knew from the start they were cheap. Um, but they wanted, I think, kind of a bid for the booster, and I didn't buy it then. But I knew if I could, I went into that day back in February knowing that I would be leaving there with it if it was still there, of course, and it was, and I bought it. Being there, they've known me for a long time, and I really got to know them really well and really dump a lot of money into them in 2012. So they really came to appreciate me in 2012, and they gave it to me sold it to me for $30. Just needed a wheel cleaning and some oiling, and from the 60s and having an open pole motor, she's really quiet, and she never causes any issues, and she's just a joy to run. She's not in the SCVR anymore. She's in. See, there's just so many branches to this story. Uh, I own and operate the Seibel Locomotive Works, which is an outside contract repair shop for HO-scale steam locomotives. And that's kind of the weird thing. The SCVR started as a way to gather the favorites into one railroad, and the Seibel Locomotive Works is my favorites within the favorite kind of railroad. The Seibel Locomotive Works engines are my true favorites. Like they're the engines that I can't live without. And they're all stored in the Seibel Locomotive Works, which we're getting a new shop actually tomorrow. But by this video, it'll probably be already here by then and built. But it's a kit, and it'll be 2 stall bigger, just better for our collection. We have 7 steam locomotives in the Seibel Locomotive Works. Because, like I told a lot of people, it's not a railroad. We don't operate excursions. We do operate excursions one weekend every 2 months, and that's usually consists of one of our 442s and a small steam engine like one of our 040s, like 33. But we're not a railroad. That's what the SCVR is for. I wouldn't want to. That's another thing. I didn't want the Seibel locomotives to grow so big because I didn't want a third railroad. That's why I knocked out the main fleet, because I didn't want to have to keep operating so many different trains as part of different systems. I still run a couple of the engines on the collection behind me occasionally, but not as much. And I've moved a lot of the main fleet steam locomotives, such as the 223, the 4441. See, this is 223 and this is 4441. Moved those to the SCVR for good use here. Also moved 060T number 8, which I just don't feel like firing up, but I can move it here. And those moved into the SCVR in 2013. Actually, well, yeah, they all moved into this year. This is when they finally moved into the SCVR. Anyways, so the Seibel Locomotive Works is my really nice private engines that are rarely ever seen out in public. It's my private repair shop, and it's my private locomotives. We have a website. I'll throw a link at you in this video if you want to see more pictures of them and whatnot. But anyways, I think I just kind of lost track there for a second. We started off in January 2012. We got that in number 9, and in February we had 33, which I said is in the Seibel Locomotive Works now, because we needed an 040T. Now we have 2 of them because I restored an old Varney one for myself. And so she's not SCVR anymore. She ran her last SCVR train back in February, actually, of this year. So, but she was the next purchase of that time, which is probably bringing you around to about 9 or 10 steam locomotives at that point. So, let's see. Then in March we acquired the 4449, but that wasn't SCVR, and it still is not today. Even though people keep asking me to put her in the SCVR, but nope. it's that's just another thing. The SCVR is more for the smaller to more medium-sized engines because this is only a 5.5 by 9.5 layout. It's pretty big and pretty wide, but I've just never really been a huge fan of big mainline steam locomotives. You know, I have a bunch of them, but you know, it's a lot of the remaining ones are in the remnants of the main fleet. I guess it's just my other half of the collection is what I call it now. I put 223 in the SCVR because we needed an excursion engine at the time because our 462-2486 was out of service, which is going to be one of the next engines I'm going to talk about. So that's why I've slowly started bringing more bigger engines in because we're going to be starting a mainline steam program, and we're drawing a lot of attention with that. And again, that will be talked about later, so stick around. So this brings us to April, and that's spring break is when I went on my spring break trip up to Northern California for Roaring Camp Railroad and Niles Canyon. So that's, and then, but about a week prior to that, I had bought a Montua 282 Camelback number 1608. And the reason I bought that is because, see, when I bought number 25, the 2662 was a Christmas gift in 2011, but we went to the Roundhouse to get it. And that was one engine out of four. It was in a collection of 4 Montua steam locomotives that the Roundhouse, the train store I always go to, bought from a guy, and that they were going to sell. And I really made it my goal after I bought 25 that okay, I'm going to do everything I can to get all 4 of them, you know, buy all 4 of them, get them back here and operational. And today, that goal has been achieved. It's been achieved since December of 2012. The 1608 was the second locomotive out of the 4 to purchase. And bought her. By now, this videos evolved. Like now, we're farther in time where there's videos of everything I'm talking about. So you can go back and see when all this was still happening. So the 1608 was the next engine. Also bought 2 Tyco Plymouth MDTs, little switchers. One of them is right here. The other one was used for parts. Used to be. You can go back and see what it used to look like. It used to be a Santa Fe, silver and red. Now it's all painted black by myself and mechanically overhauled and serviced. It's a good engine now. I'm just going to put this one back. I don't feel like having to keep bringing all these engines out because I'm going to have to put them back later. So save myself the trouble here. So I got those. I'm more focusing on the steam engines here because those are you see those more on my videos. But yeah, the 1608 282 was the next steam locomotive we got. Then then at this time in April, about 3 weeks or so before I went on spring break, I sent in my old Bachmann 7440, the second SCVR steam engine, number 3063, along with my beloved main fleet Spectrum 482 Unit Pacific number 7009. I sent them both in for what I thought would have been a repair. Was not familiar with Bachmann's repair-replace policy, where if they can't repair it, which they really even can't, they practically replace like every engine that comes into their shop now. So both engines got replaced. Still really miss my 482, and the engine that replaced it is the 210-2 number 223. It's a beautiful engine, no doubt, but I really, really want my 482 back, and I'm going to be acquiring hopefully one soon off eBay and that'll definitely be an SCVR engine because I really love that engine. Or loved it, I guess I would say. But yeah, when I came back from spring break, you know, I by that time there was so many more new engines that I had gotten because I had 1608 a week before spring break. During spring break, I went to a train store and got a Rio Grande an Atlas GP40 number 3084, which is next to the shop. It's in need of some work. I got that, and then when I came back, so and plus the Plymouth engines, I had 4, and I came back to 2 new Bachmann engines, which is now Southern 3856, which is the new DCC 440 and the 223, what was not a CBR. So 6 engines within a course of about 3 weeks is a lot. Yeah, and that's the thing I was talking about. My good friend John Miner, Jam Coast 95. I was talking to him, but I was talking to him the other day. So like, because I don't even remember really running 3856 much on the old layout. I don't really know why I never did. She's always been a really good runner, but I really just can't remember why. Because I was telling because I found a picture of her double heading with 425 on the last steam of the old layout in August 2012, and I thought it was weird seeing her operate on that layout because she operates so much more in this one. You'll see her a lot more in the Age of Locomotives in Action series. But yeah, I don't know. I've probably only operated her maybe about 3 to 4 times within the span of 4 months that she was on the old layout. But it was really good to have her back. I still had kept every detail part off my old 3063 because what I thought was that they were going to send me that they were going to repair the tender PCB or replace the tender frame and send it back to me, and then I would just be able to put all the detail parts I had back on it. Unfortunately, I sent the wood bunker, not the wood bunker, but the wood load and the wood basket with it, so she couldn't return as a wood burner, but now she is an oil burner after I did some modifications on the oil bunker, and so now she's an oil burner, which is kind of funny because a Southern steam locomotive would never be really oil or wood. But California, my railroad, so it's kind of how it goes. And so that was, what, April? Okay, and then in May you have the big SCVR number 5 story, which is in the last week of April I finally decided I was going to get my SCVR 040 number 5, which is my beloved engine to this day. I was going to get her done after 5 long years. And I did order the parts engine off eBay, purchased one, came on the 26th of April. On the 27th she was operational. She wasn't that great of an operator then. Like even with the new restoration of her parts engine number 99. Like I said, there's so many branches to like every story I tell it, it's just so hard to keep track of. But yeah, but like both on number 5 and 99's restoration, they were not good they were not good runners when they were first put back together. They needed some tinkering, adjusting. And then in June, early June, she finally got enough tinkering to where actually late May, to where she finally ran good, and she's been good ever since. She's since undergone a boiler respray and some tender and replacement tender trucks, but she's fine. And the engine that supplied her in the parts engine that gave her number 5's parts to return to operation is also in operation now. Because I acquired another parts engine off eBay for my birthday this year to put that parts engine back in service. And I don't know if I'm going to restore the 3rd parts engine, because then at that point it'd be like a never-ending cycle. I mean, if I could find a tender, a set of drivers, a valve guides, and a motor by itself, I could put the other parts engine back in service, which is now SCVR number 19. I did repaint the boiler and the frame and everything, so it's eventually going to be a project. It will get done eventually. I keep drifting away, but number 5 was the next engine to be brought back. Yeah, she was one of the very rare one of the early engines of the SCVR. And as the birthday gifts I got for May 2012, it was Climax number 1, which I don't even feel like getting out. You know what a Climax looks like. And number 8, which was at the time main fleet. Number 1 was SCVR, no doubt. 8 went to the main fleet. So at that point, you had the Climax in May. I mean, the reason I'm like kind of going boring on when each engine was acquired, because each engine really brings along with it another engine, or it brings its own branch. It grows its own branch of growth within the SCVR. It's kind of the way I would kind of say that, because each engine is important one way or another to the SCVR's past and future. Because certain engines provoke the purchases of other engines, and that's how the world kind of turns for the SCVR. But then 1 was the next engine, and we started putting back together what we had left of number 99, number 5's parts engine at the time, and we had started another restoration project. I mean, we had acquired a couple more diesels in that time, but in my opinion, it's just not worth talking about because that'd drag on for a long time. We've always been about the steam engines because they're more fun and they're more wanted. You see, we have a pretty big diesel collection that consists of a lot of F7s and a lot of unique diesels like GP18s and the Alco 630. But I'm always an F7 nut, so we have a couple of those. But we do have a diesel collection, just don't use it a whole lot. We use it for switching and whatnot. What I initially planned on doing with this new layout is having the SCVR steam ups say we had a steam up on the first weekend of the month. The next weekend we'd have the diesel excursions, and then we just kind of rotated month by month. And that still hasn't happened to this day. And with the mainline program coming, there will not be a separate diesel excursions. But hopefully you'll be able to see those out more. And I don't remember really acquiring anything in June. Well, I probably did. It was I'm just trying to look over and see if I'm oh right. So I almost forgot the big engine. Southern Pacific 2486 and a Lifelike tea kettle number 25. Those were acquired with birthday money a couple weeks after my birthday. Went to the Roundhouse and bought for $100 the new Montua. Well, it was barely. It was kind of. It wasn't used that much, but it was really nice. It was the last year of Montua production, because Montua went out of business in 2001. The Model Power brought them over in 2003, and they started remaking their popular engines like the 462 and the 2662 and the 060s and whatnot. So the last year Montua production, 2001, was a 2486 engine. And I got that in late May, probably around the 26th or something like that. I'm pretty good at remembering dates. Also, along with that, I got, but that was the first mainline engine, so to speak, and that was the first big SCVR engine. Along with the small little special occasion engine, the Lifelike tea kettle number 25, which at the time in August 2011, I was kind of on the fence on whether to buy the tea kettle or this, and I ended up going with this because there was two tea kettles in one of these, so I know that I'd be able to eventually go back and get the tea kettle. Sorry, so much talk it hurts my throat. And that was late May. Like I said, in June, because it was summer, I really don't remember acquiring anything. I know in August we came back and purchased the third Montua engine of the four, like I said, that were bought by the Roundhouse. And that engine was, like I said, the third of the four Montua ones acquired out of that collection. And she easily took the least amount of work next to 25 to get running. Because they were all running, but they needed wheel cleaning and surfacing. But I mean, like at a servicing standpoint, 3 and 25 took only just some oil. They didn't really take any cleaning. But now that they've been used a lot, they've been cleaned. But 3 has always been a really good engine. I replaced her tender trucks for brass tender wheel trucks and wheels with nickel-plated ones, nickel silver. I think my friend John's got nickel plate like etched into my head now. Thank you, John. Sorry, nickel silver. Now she's got nickel silver tender wheels, so she has better connection. That was in August, and then by that time, a couple weeks later, I'd started school. And like I said, I'm just trying to look over to see if I'm missing anything. Nope, I think I'm right on the money. And then that brings us to August, September. Actually, yeah, we acquired the turntable in August of 2012. And the sad part is we used it for not even about a month before we tore down the old layout and built this new one. And that was what was sad, because we barely even used any of the new stuff we had, because we had just I'd gotten so into the idea of a new layout that I kind of rushed things, and we trying to think, I knew I was forgetting something really important, which is part of the Seibel locomotive works now. My David Lee Circus 280 number 3. That was a Roundhouse kit, made in the 80s, and there's only 5. They only built 500 of them, but it makes you kind of wonder how many are even still left. I see the occasional one on eBay now and again, but that's always just been my favorite eBay purchase of all time. Um, Unless I went back on that, I think. But that was originally an SCVR engine, but now it's known for being Seibel Locomotive Works, and it's still my favorite engine, no doubt. I bought that as an unopened kit in June 2012, summer, and the goal was to get it built and operational for SCVR trains. And unfortunately, that never came to be. Never even on the old layout did she ever run, because we had trouble assembling the main rods because the directions were not clear at all on how you were supposed to do that. But now she has main rods, and she's gone through so many different changes now. Because now that I've had, see, it's not that being my private engine in the Seibel locomotive is any different than this, but they don't get worked on as much. But when they do get worked on, they get a ton of stuff done. I get so much stuff worked on them at a time. And they get a lot more upgrades and a lot more attention, I think I would say. But number 3, I made the pilot wheel 4. I didn't use the crappy like Athearn. Like they used like a typical plastic tired but metal axle Athearn wheel you'd find like in a blue box freight car as the pilot wheel. You're supposed to sand down the spoke on the end. But that looks really crappy in my opinion. So I took an old Spectrum tender wheel and grinded down the spoke. That way I was able to it would look like a pilot wheel, and I painted it. And then so that was one of the first upgrades. Also tried to update how I put new main rods on it because I couldn't figure out the old ones. It has new main rods now, and it is operational and it does run very well. It just needs a new headlight casting, which I'll probably be getting soon. Originally, it transferred. See, the Seibel Locomotive Works didn't exist till September of 2012, and that started. See, that's the thing. It's kind of like these things. The SCVR started with an idea, more or less, and the idea was of a collection of engines. It was supposed to be small. It's not small anymore. But a small to mid-sized collection of steam locomotives that were my favorites. And that was what the original plan of the SCVR was. And when number 3 arrived, she was painted black entirely with black boiler, and now with a good tip from my friend John, I keep mentioning because we're good friends. He told me that a good circus color would be to paint it white, because I was doing some work on the handrails and I had to repaint the boiler, and I'd already repainted it and removed the paint like 3 times when it was blacking out. So I was debating between a gray, a white, or a black. Now I have a lot more colors, but the white was really good and it's sticking today. I guess I'll probably throw a picture at you if I can. And that is the number 3 that is here today. The reason she never ran on the SCVR is because like I said, we tore down this line in the day after my dad's birthday, which was like September 1st. Was when we tore down, I think, this line, and everything had been put into storage, and it sat like that till October, almost November. But see, then I knew the Roundhouse String Store had a Walters Machine Shop kit, and at that time I wanted 3 to be even more separate, and that's what started the Seibel Locomotive Works. It didn't become a contract repair shop for HSCO steam locomotives until a couple of months later, but it is now, and it has 2 purposes. But that started in September 2012, along with, and during it was October that we had acquired, there's a video of this also, we had acquired off eBay a mini lot, including a Roundhouse 060 slopebacker from the 50s, all metal, and a Lifelike 040, another tea kettle, number 25. And originally the 060 was going to be SCVR, but then like 2 weeks later the Seibel Locomotive Works formed, and I wanted both those engines as my private engines. Number 2 is pretty far along. I mean, she was a wreck when she first arrived. You can look at it. I mean, I'll definitely have to put a picture out here to show you what she looks like now, because When she arrived, so corroded, so paint chipped, and just so worn out. And now her frame's been rebuilt, a lot of axle expansions. The drivers have been re-cleaned and all repolished, and paint work has gone overboard. And it looks a lot better now. Still needs a tender, and I need to clean out the cylinder passages because there's some old, it's like frozen inside. Old like kind of cement and kind of thin glue particles block the passages for the main piston. Is what I'm still working on. That should be done hopefully by the end of this year as well, and that you'll see that on Seibel Locomotive Works trains eventually. So that was another SCVR engine for the time acquired, along with the Lifelike tea kettle. And the tea kettle, because we didn't have a layout, like we still had the layout board, but there was only like a strip of track that I could test engines on that I kept, but everything else was in boxes or in storage within the garage area. So I couldn't run anything really. I brought the occasional things out to test and to clean and work on, but I didn't really run any trains. So, and then the original plan for the tea kettle was to, because it looked beautiful cosmetically, and it didn't have any obvious signs of wear or any problem. So my plan was to clean it, oil it, just give it a full servicing, and get it running. And when it turned out, when I couldn't figure out why it would run because the motor would spin, nothing would move, I unscrewed the bottom gear plate, and out just came so many chips and portions of the gears. I was just shocked. I mean, it was just a wreck inside. Actually, today I was working on it. It's very far along now. It's got new gears everywhere. I put 2 new axles on it that have new gears on it. So I replaced the axles on the drivers. A new idler gear and a custom formed idler gear shaft by me, and 2 internal gears. Because you see, when the drivers spin, they connect to the internal gears inside the frame, which then all go up and connect to the idler gear, which turn, and then when the motor turns, it all turns that. So all the gearing is new, and it has a new CAN motor now, and it's really close to being done with its restoration. I will have an update on that soon. I basically just told you what the deal was. It's working on the bench over there. It's far along, and it'll be in service by the end of probably the summer, and that'll be good to have another SCVR engine. And that brings us to, we're at September, and okay, so around September is when also acquired. I went to the Roundhouse for the raffle and actually won the $50 second prize. Bought 3 Black Widows, which are all Seibel Locomotive Works now. I love them. Which are 2 Black Widow F7As, which I'm looking at right now, and an old Ather and 50s band drive GP9. That's almost done. I was working on the new bands the other day. But then also was a Bachmann Union Pacific 282 Mikado Union Pacific 2528. It was an old 90s one, and when it ran for 5 minutes, and then I went to go clean the wheels, and I moved the throttle on it to move it up forward, and then just crunch, stop, dead on water. Broke 2 axles. I mean, it was old, I knew that, and I know that Bachmanns are prone to axle cracking. I have a lot of repair methods if you want to know on how to repair or replace Bachmann drive axles, because I've done that so many times now. But the second and the third axles broke, and I replaced those, and I got the engine running within a couple months. But the motor was so loud, and it was a pancake motor, and it just was not dependable. And I had my friend Freddie, Bayline 509, gave me a old Bachmann 280 frame, which is not a pancake motor. It was more, oh, actually it was, but it was a lot quieter, because I remember I tested it, and I was going to switch everything running gear wise to that new frame, the cylinder frame. And I got about halfway through that process before it just became too much work for me to handle at that time. And the issue I had with it was, I think I went too far up into the frame, because what I do as a repair process for repairing frames is expanding the bearings and or the axle slots for where the wheels are rotated in. because whenever a wheel is loose on the axle, I usually use my very strong thin cement called Zap, which will glue your fingers together. That basically just shows you how strong it is. I use that. I put a couple really small drops or small amounts on the sides of the axles that meets into the wheel to secure it in place. But at times, because you have that residue on there and it hardens, it makes that the smaller original frame, the axle slot size, it makes that not able to handle the slightly larger and crystallized kind of hardened frame or hardened axle. So, and because if you filed it off, the glue wouldn't hold as strong. I'd run into that problem a couple times, and like I did it on number 9. What you do is you take a file and you try to expand outward, but what had happened was while I was expanding outward on the 280 frame, it also was going up a little bit too far. And the problem with it, what I would think would be, I haven't finished it, or it's kind of been dead on water, but the problem I think it's going to be is that there's too much gap between the frame and the wheels, the frame and the ground, more or less, where the cover plate is, that the wheel's not going to be able to roll. And that'll be a huge problem on the geared wheel, because then the gear won't be able to touch the idler gear and won't be able to transfer power to the motor. So I have not fiddled with that yet. I did say, my friend, I was gonna probably see if I could maybe fix it and kind of go back on it. I love repairing engines, but that one's just been a pain. But I hope to figure out a solution with it, get it back in operation. But anyways, that was another SCVR engine acquired in I think yeah, late September, pretty sure. Then in October we made the transfer. In October, the first engine I ever had, 709, was undergoing its rebuild because it had broke its third axle, and the last SCVR steam up in August, and had been undergoing restoration ever since. So it was undergoing restoration at that time. That was basically the only thing I was working on besides my Seibel locomotive work stuff. I also did some work on the, I forgot to mention the main shop. I don't know how I forgot that, well, that actually doesn't come later. Like I said, I acquired the turntable in August 2011. I knew I wanted to get the roundhouse, but that would be an eventual thing. Acquired the main shop in January off Amazon, January 2012, and that's always been kind of the centerpiece of the layout. I love it. It's huge. Stores a lot of engines. Stores the favorites in the SCVR. Not as much of a favorite as the Seibel locomotive works, but it's still, that's where the cool cat engines go. So, I mean, this video is probably a lot longer than the last one, but that's just because there's so much to the SCVR. It's happened in like 3 years that we've been around. So, I was just kind of backtracking. That was acquired in January. In September, also off Amazon, I acquired the roundhouse kit. These were all like the machine shop, the gray shop, the roundhouse, the Seibel locomotive works. Those are all kits, so I have a lot of experience building the kits now. So I built all of those, and that was just perfect because we really needed a roundhouse because of our ever-growing fleet. Because I keep telling you about every time a steam engine got acquired, because we want to keep the steam engines inside. Because the diesel locomotives can sit outside; they don't have any moving parts on the outside. They're all kind of internal, so that way they don't. Because steam locomotives require, if you let them sit for a while, especially like in a garage where there's a lot of dust and cold weather changes, you gotta kind of keep the engines. You gotta oil the engines up about every time you get them out. That's why kind of 425 was a little bit sputtery on the turntable area. So that was built. Like these kits were built and acquired in like same day. The main shop took 2 days, but the Seibel locomotive workshop and the roundhouse were built same day. Not like the gray shop, which took 3 months. We didn't build over 3 months. We started after 3 months of wait. Anyways, so that was acquired then. Then the engines were all stored off-site until October, late October, when we finally were able to start building the new layout, which is a long video of that. Excuse me. Gotta keep hydrated. Okay, so that brings us to October, when we just started the new layout. And being all the money was going to be put towards layout stuff, there was no way an engine was going to be purchased. So this new layout was built a couple days before Halloween. It was not finished at all. I believe this whole area was all finished. Except, well, because that was the thing. I was so dumb when I originally built this layout. I'll just be honest with you, because I did not build. You gotta build with expansion in mind, is what I always say. Because like if you see there's certain spots where there's room, you kind of kick yourself in the rear, kind of go, oh man, I wish I put that there or this there, and that's something you want to avoid. But thankfully, with room out here, I was able to buy a lot of cork, buy a lot of track over the span of a couple months, and fill up 18 of 21 turntable slots. I do plan on maybe moving this. The switch tower's not glued down, but I'll probably move it over more towards this gondola behind this boxcar, so I could probably build a track here, cut this piece of flex track, and make another switch to have like maybe a little spur to keep just for like photo occasions. That's just a maybe. That'll be like a little kind of weekend project somewhere along the line. But yeah, I'd say only about let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. About 11 of the 21 stalls were the only ones that were there when the layout was first built. It was not till months later that we finally started adding them in between the shops and more closer towards the turntable lead, is what I call it, the turntable lead track. And that's always been, see, even though it's a hand crank, I really love it. The turntable just adds so much, because while you can just be like most railroaders and pick up the engine and turn it around yourself for if you're doing some photos or videos or whatnot, me, this just offers a really fun opportunity to let your dreams or fantasies and turn into a reality, because you have a working turntable. And it's only 9 inches long, but thankfully, like I said, a lot of the SCR engines are small, and you can turn a lot of them on there. So that's always been a really fun part of the layout. Alright, so now in October the layout was built, and in November I had got more ballast in the station platform extension, and I finished the station area in these two main portions of ballast during November, and then in early December I was able to get one more pack of ballast and finish. Hey guys, I am back, and I'm sorry, obviously I'm wearing different clothes, because yesterday I did that video. I started it at like 10 o'clock at night and dragged on till 11. I was like, oh god, and did not have the energy or the voice to continue on. I think I left off about December 2012 in the history of the SCVR, and I'm sorry if it's been boring. I'm not really just talking about each engine acquisition. The steam engine purchases are more important, because they open a gate, like I said, and they grow a branch to another future purchase, and then they just make the SCVR what it is. So at Christmas time, we had the Seibel Locomotive Works got their first operational steam locomotive, the St. Louis Southwestern 442 number 605, and that is my private shop's star engine. And actually, just today I went to the Roundhouse train store to pick up the new shop I ordered, and I will show you the new 280. That's for the SCVR, right there. Spec new Bachmann Union Pacific 280 number 724. Has DCC, which I don't use, but it's still good to have. And so that would be the 280. So that's another engine purchase. That's why I'm moving out the Seibel Locomotive Works stuff. You can see all the engines are outside in the line over there, because we're moving them out of the shop, and you're going to be building the new one. So then we're going to move, and that's going to be the SCVR repair shop when it's all said and done. So I just thought I'd put that in there. Okay, so for Christmas 2012, the SCVR, the Seibel Locomotives got their 442-605, and the SCVR got their second 2662, number 1192, which is behind the shop, the main shop right there. You probably can't see that, but it's behind the main shop, because the front truck, the brass gear got really worn out, because it would always kind of thud in operation. You always hear it kind of like a chunk sound, and when eventually it threw a drive shaft after the May steam up, spectacular. And so I took apart the front truck and noticed that the brass worm gear was like one of on the end. Uh, sorry, the end flange part of it was almost flat because it was just bent flat, and you can rebend it, but it wouldn't last. So I'm going to be ordering a new one off Model Power's website soon and getting that back in service. That was that was a birthday gift for the SCVR. And then after Christmas, 3 days after I had my money from Christmas and I bought the John Deere Critter for the Seibel locomotive because their shop go. Also bought the fourth engine of the four, like I said, roundhouse bought a collection of 412 steam locomotives from a guy. And the last one was Great Northern 060 number 407. And that one I replaced the motor on it and gave it a full cleaning because it wouldn't run good at first. But now it runs fantastic. And so that was the next engine acquisition, and it's one of two bigs. Another thing I realized when I was going back through my videos, I forgot to mention February 2012 when I purchased this another Monto 060 Big 6 off eBay. The Great Northern 407 was the fourth engine, like I said, of the collection, and that's a Big 6 as well. But this is an early 60s all metal one, except for the tender, which wasn't. And it is it's almost done with its overhaul, which included a new motor. It's currently borrowing the tender off a somewhat newly acquired roundhouse 262 from 1905 for now, because we still need a new tender for it. But forgot to mention that. I got that in February 2012. Anyways, so now we're bringing us to December. Like I said, we got 407, and we got in the ballast for the line at that time. And the line was finished in early January. So that would bring us, yeah. Also, a donated engine to the SCVR was a Pennzoil 040 Model Power, which is over there. That was donated kindly to us by a friend of ours, and I repainted the boiler jacket, fixed the headlight, fixed the cow catcher, machined a new drawbar for it from scratch, added a new tender wheel, and it was good. So it's a good little engine. You've seen it before in some of the steam ups. HC locomotive was in action as well. It'll be out again soon. So there we go. Now we're on, and the grand opening of our line was on January 5th and 6th of 2013 of this year, and that was the biggest event. Like I said, that was the most painful event I've ever had to do in my life. But that kicked us back in operation, and we've been going ever since. And in March, I'm trying to think. Well, never mind. That doesn't have anything to do with the SCVR. I think in March was when we went to the Bakersfield Frame Show, and we got the 262 Roundhouse 1905 and the little Daylight 040 number 4410, which the Daylight 040 is with the Seibel locomotive works being rebuilt, almost done, and the 262 number 1905 is still in need of some lot of work. So then that was that, and that brought us to April, which we went to the Fullerton Railroad Days, and this was part of my HO birthday gifts video, and I bought a Western Pacific F7 green number 921. It was an Athearn engine, it was a kit never built, and I built it the same day and lubed it up, and it's a fantastic runner. I also got a Model Power 280 tender driven steam locomotive number 984. And I love that engine. It's really cool. I really don't like tender driven engines, but I actually do like that one a lot. And so that was included as part of the birthday gift video because that was all within a span of about 3 to 4 weeks. And for my birthday gifts, like I said, we had gotten, because number 99 was number 5's parts supplier. But then I started in summer of 2012 putting together what I had left of 99 and starting a restoration, which included painting and cleaning of a lot of old parts. And her restoration started then. And then I decided I want to get it done for my birthday, like I got number 5 done for my birthday last year. So I got another parts engine off eBay. It was buy it now for about $20. Bought that and took 2 days and put all gave number 99 a new motor, new running gear entirely, which consisted of new drivers, um, valve guides, and then she already had a rebuilt tender, so she didn't need one. But now she's in service, so, and the parts engine that supplied parts for number 99 is now number 19. And someday that will be an engine in operation, but I really don't want to. See, that's what I mentioned earlier. I don't want a repeating cycle of parts engines. I'd like to just get some drivers, a motor, and a tender to finish number 19. And that'll be done someday. Probably not as fast as these two got their parts engines, but you know, we'll see. And also as birthday gifts, I got Southern Pacific 280 Roundhouse New Edition 2610, which is similar to the first engine that started the SCVR number 2601. Also, the Montua 2662T, the undecorated logger number 44. I love that engine to death. So much detail, and that will bring us to now. Actually, I don't know. If I forgot 14, I'm sure I forgot probably something else. That brings us to now, and like I said today, I just got the 280, and that's SCVR's newest engine, and we're going to be having a mainline steam program, which is going to have a trial session this summer, because we've had some fascination with because we want a program to run our big steam engines, and with the main fleet no longer existent, we have the opportunity to lease and loan their steam engines, which was the Union Pacific 484-806, Southern Pacific 462-6789, and SP 4449. So, and we have our own 210-2 number 223, 462 number 2486, and actually the 280-724 will be in it as well. And we're also looking at getting a Montua Classics Canadian Pacific 462 number 4073, and I cannot wait for that thing. I absolutely love it. So that'll be able to kick off the mainline steam program, which will debut during the year. We're just going to be doing some trial programs and test runs throughout the summer to kind of get it all ready. And I don't know, well, like I said, the current Seibel Locomotive Workshop will be the SCVR Restoration Shop, and our Southern 482 number 1491, which used to be main fleet, is currently undergoing restoration. It'll be moved to that shop as well to be housed. And I've rebuilt the tender with it. I still need a ton of new parts, consisting of a new motor, drivers, and PCBs. It'll be done, I would not say soon, but relatively soon. We're in a pretty good, I'd say within a year it should be done. And that'll be one of the stars of the main fleet, mainline steam program. So that is that. What the future holds for the SCVR will be probably replacing the small red shop with a bigger 2-stall shop. We've done every turntable expansion that we pretty much can, and we're going to be putting some more sidings in places for coaches that we acquire on and off. You know, it's been a real journey, and we've only had this line for almost a year now, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been pretty good. It's bigger, we can have more trains running on it, so I'm looking forward to a lot of future aspects of it. No, there's not going to be a whole lot of changes in the layout. There's going to be, of course, a lot of new engine purchases within, the year, because I'm always up for acquiring more engines. And I don't think I missed any steps on this. I didn't cut any corners in this program. I tried to give you every little bit of detail I remember. So, I mean, if you have any questions at all, just shoot them away. I'll happily answer them, because I always love talking about this. And these sit-down videos are a lot of fun. This one took a long time, so I'm sorry if this is really boring for you. But that is that. In the future, maybe someday, I think within a year or two, maybe I'd say 2 to 3 years, we'll probably have an even bigger layout. I'd like to have one that you can be in the middle of and it goes around you, because the circle layout is just boring and not as fun. But this thing does keep me busy a lot, and looking forward to some future expansions. So, I'll probably just do some counting right now, so bear with me here. Let's see here. I'm going to do how many operational steam locomotives we have right now. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, Looks like right now we have about 21 operational steam locomotives, about 26 to 30 total, and we have about like 10 or so diesels that are all operational. Um, just to go over some figures, is what I was saying. But yeah, that is the entire history of the Santa Clarita Valley Railroad. We started, like I said, in 2011. We officially opened in 2012, and we're still going. And we thank you all very much for your continued support and interest. And if you want to learn more, go to scvr.weebly.com. All right, guys. Thank you guys very much for watching this program. And like I said, any comments, questions, shoot them, and I will answer them. Thank you very much.